go.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome into a Wednesday. What a gorgeous day outside, too. And very similar to how the Pacers season ended. Now, clearly, the Fever did not get that final step to the WNBA Finals, but very similar fashion with Kelsey Mitchell. And I don't know what it is called, the severe level of cramping that kept her from being able to move her legs. Thus, clearly, when you can't do that, you cannot play basketball. She sent that out via social media a little bit earlier today. Pat Boylan's going to join us in a couple of minutes. We're going to go ahead and recap not just last night, that decisive Game 5 in overtime. I will say this, in terms of basketball and competitive basketball, I say this, and because I've lived here all my life, it is always going to be different. And I do kind of look at other states and other areas of basketball when they thump their chest and say, well, you know what, we're basketball here. I go, yeah, my ass, you're nothing. No, it's basketball's here. Basketball is ours. Has been and always will be. This is my opinion, whether or not you agree, if you're out of state, if you're from New York and you think that's the epicenter or wherever, I don't really care. This state is basketball. And the one thing about basketball that always has been and always will be embraced is just the level of competition. Sure, winning is always the most important. Nobody's suggesting that it isn't. But what both the Pacers and the Fever showed you in the highest levels of competition, it doesn't make anybody feel better about losing, but it does instill a form of pride and certainly a great deal of gratitude for the effort. For what the Pacers accomplished going through their postseason run and 7 games of the NBA Finals, into the Fever playing basically with a lineup out there that for the most part, had not been with the team throughout the season. It was incredible. Knocking down shots, making plays. They just continued to push. They wouldn't go away easily. And I think when you're a sports person, no matter what level in which you play, that's, I think, always how you would like to be described. Now, at the top, you want to be described as a winner, as a champion. But you want to be described as a participant in the fashion in which the Fever and the Pacers went about their business at the highest of levels in their respective sports that we now have witnessed. You still come away empty-handed. There's no championship. But that's how people around here that love basketball like me, that's how they want to talk about your play. Even without the championship accomplishment. There's a great deal of pride in that. And again, we know basketball better than anybody else. That's always going to be the feeling. That feeling's never going to go away. It's funny. There are a lot of things that are going to change with age in terms of basketball. I mean, hell, we've seen it. We're witnessing it, but that's one thing that is never, the whole play hard quote is never, ever going to go away. And you're not going to find two better examples of that with Pacer Sports Entertainment, with the Pacer season and with the Fever season, this past year. So if nothing else, you are going to be prideful in that. And, unlike the situation with the Pacers where you're going to have to now wait a year without Tyrese Halliburton, I'm excited to watch them. I don't know how many of you out there are equally excited as I am to watch them play without Halliburton this year. I would rather him be out there, but I trust that their caliber of play and want to is going to be similar as to when they're full strength. And I'm counting on that. Next year for the Fever, it's going to be different. You're thinking not only will they reload, but they're going to be on TV every single moment. There's going to be no doubt about that, but there's going to be certainly championship aspirations. I mean, it's one thing surviving a season when somebody gets injured or you have a couple of injuries, but when, hell, everybody gets injured, that's something. A lot of want-to in that we witnessed last night. If you stayed up late and if you watched it, it was impressive until the very end. And there are just some things ultimately on the floor. I don't even think it was the personnel. In that overtime, the Aces just knocked down shots. They had back-to-back-to-back threes that put the Fever to bed. So it wasn't so much, they were right there. Hell, a couple of those shots, one was like fading to the left. 2 out of the 3 were versus the shot clock. And they just knocked down some shots, and that was the difference. Personnel-wise, you're talking full strength versus people that just got there, recently got there, haven't been there the entire year. There's a lot to be said about that. Very prideful, and you should be if you're a Fever fan. If you're a hardcore Fever fan, hardcore Pacer fan, it is okay to have that pride in those teams that you follow. You go to the games, you buy the tickets, you buy their gear. That's what you want out of that. You ultimately want a championship, and that's what anybody cares about, and that's how the story is going to always be written. We know that to be true. But still, for different reasons, there's a great deal of pride and certainly enjoyment in what you've witnessed in these past seasons for both the Pacers and the Fever. So a shout out to the Fever on taking it to its limit and going about it and playing the game of basketball exactly how people around here want it to be played. Oftentimes we use that term, that phrase, laying it on the line. Yeah, whatever. That's laying it on the line right there. I thought the Pacers did the same thing for their postseason. Pat Boylan's going to join us coming up in a couple of minutes. We'll go over the injury to Kelsey Mitchell. We'll go over the game itself, go over the season, and then talk about what is coming up on the inbound too. Where are they going to be in terms of chasing a title? Those aspirations are certainly going to be there. Probably slip in because I was sitting next to Pat going back to Monday at the Pacers Media Day. Probably slip in a couple of Pacer questions as well with Pat Boylan. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, Kirk Morrison's going to join us. He is the radio play-by-play partner. He is the analyst on the Raiders radio network, the former NFL defensive player is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Kevin Bowen. We've got guys that are back for the Colts today, and we got guys that are out, and we have not yet a decision. Almost sounded like when asked today, Shane Steichen, he was asked about whether or not A.D. Mitchell was going to be active on Sunday. It remains to be seen. It almost sounds like, well, coming up on Sunday, you'll find out that he won't be, but we'll see. Kevin Bowen about that at 4 o'clock, and Lance Mallister, unfortunately, about the BP that was thrown at Dodger Stadium last night by our Redlegs. And that's essentially what it was. It was a team that's incredibly expensive, and you would expect absolutely everything that you witnessed, and a team that hasn't been there and is not as expensive, and that's what you got. And Game 2 is coming up later on tonight. Yeah, it was a glorified batting practice for the Dodgers. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is the voice of the Fever. He's on the Pacer Radio Network, so he got to digest basically all of it from the spring all the way into the fall and the postseasons for both the Pacers and the Fever. Pat Boylan joins us now. Good afternoon, Pat. How are you?
John, doing well. Good to be with you.
There are no moral victories. We know that. It's a championship or bust. But people around here know how they want their basketball to be played. When they describe their teams and how they play, they want their teams to play as the Pacers did and as the Fever did. Even without a title, as disappointing as that might be, you could not find a better representation of how to play the game of basketball than what we had witnessed in the spring, summer, and fall around here.
Man, I couldn't have put that any better myself. You know, when you think about really the Pacers season, it started to turn in early December, but I think really started to capture the imagination of the entire fan base and a lot of people nationally in April. That carried through late June and the unfortunate circumstance where Game 7 ends with a Tyrese Halliburton injury. But I think it's one of those years where even though you don't win a championship, it's a team that'll never be forgotten here locally and nationally. I think that's probably true also. And the parallels to this Fever season. Now, there were some, of course, significant differences. The Fever only had Caitlin Clark for 13 games this year. The amount of injuries that the Fever had to deal with, a near unprecedented level. But for this team to finish a win away from the WNBA Finals, to take that decisive Game 5 to overtime and to do so, and I still can't believe I'm saying this because I can't believe, in a way, history repeated itself. Your top guard, maybe your best player that you have available to you, getting hurt in that game. Now, fortunately, Kelsey Mitchell, not a long-term injury that's going to affect next year, but to see that happen again, I'm almost speechless just thinking about it. But at the end of the day, I think people are going to remember the 2025 Indiana Pacers for a long time, and I think certainly people are going to remember what this 2025 Indiana Fever team did despite all of the circumstances that they had to deal with. I think they're going to remember this season for a long time, too.
Pat Boylan, who is the voice of the Fever on the Pacers Radio Network, which, by the way, gets started next Tuesday, so there's going to be no rest for Pat whatsoever. Pat's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, let's face it, it didn't come down to talent v. talent last night in decisive Game 5. You go to overtime, and there were 3 moments, and there are 3-point makes, 2 against the shot clock specifically, that put the Pacers to bed. It was not talent versus talent whatsoever, because I should say the Fever were right there. It was 3 made threes versus moments in which the Fever could not find their way to make that up. That was the difference last night.
Yeah, it's so interesting watching that overtime because you have, of course, Caitlin Clark not available, Sophie Cunningham not available, Kelsey Mitchell goes down in the game, and Aaliyah Boston gets her 6th foul. Now, you're already going up against a team that had 4 of the 12 players on the gold medal Olympic-winning USA team. This is already probably a talent disparity, even if you're fully healthy. And then when you think about everybody who was out in that overtime, and down the stretch in that game even, when Kelsey Mitchell was hurt, the Fever were down by 9 on the road in the 4th quarter, and they found a way back. I mean, Odyssey Sims was obviously brilliant and led that charge, but it's amazing because we have been talking. It reminds me a little bit of the Tyrese Halliburton clutch shots in kind of a different way, because each time he had one of those, you're like, wow, how did he somehow outdo the last one, which you thought you maybe wouldn't see again, and certainly this year. And I think the similarity there from the Fever perspective is we have seen so many unbelievable displays of resiliency. Assuredly, they can't top that again. And yet, even in a loss, I would contest that they did that last night, because to be down by 9 with just about every significant player without any of them available, and they did have a few of their key players, but going against that Las Vegas team, I mean, just on paper, that's a game where the Aces should have run away with. But the Fever's resiliency, I think, showed at maybe its highest level all season long. And in the overtime, I think you just got to tip your cap. I actually thought the Fever played great defense. I thought Vegas got very few good shots, and you saw those Olympic gold medalists just hit a few tough ones, and the Fever, eventually just ran out of gas there in that overtime. I'd be curious if The Fever were looking for a 3 on that final offensive possession. The way it broke down, Sims got right to the rim. I kind of wondered if that would be a possession where they'd take a 3 there and just try to steal it. But once Sims got that look, I think she absolutely had to make the play that she did. And to her credit, she knocked the shot down. It was just amazing watching the roster that the Fever had available in the overtime, the roster that Vegas had available in the overtime, and to think that we are in the overtime and with a spot in the WNBA Finals on the line.
It's Pat Boylan who's with us. Can you help explain the circumstances that led to the cramping of Kelsey Mitchell and her exit from the game last night, which was basically the last thing that the Fever needed whatsoever? But those circumstances, and it looks like long-term wise, everything's going to be okay. But certainly the system shut down during the game last night for the top guard on the Fever.
Yeah, I think that's really what happened. And, most of the time throughout the year when I'm talking to you after a game that I was at, either announcing or watched in person. And I was not out in Vegas for the game, so watching along on television with all of you, and obviously haven't had the chance to talk to Kelsey yet. I think maybe we'll get the opportunity tomorrow. First of all, great to see that this isn't going to be something long-term. And the first thing I thought of when she went down was this just doesn't happen. In fact, she's only missed 5 total games in the 8 years of her WNBA career, less than a game per year. And she's played each of the last 3 seasons, playing every single game. And she did, of course, play this last game too. So that continues. But what I'm getting at is she's an iron woman, the definition of one, probably more than any other player in the WNBA. So her not being available is extremely rare. And obviously you don't get to that point without a lot of mental and physical toughness. So it was clearly something that was bothering her in a major way. You obviously don't go to the hospital. That's not the case. And the bad luck that this team has tried to overcome, it's kind of one of those things where you laugh so you don't cry. I mean, your most dependable player in maybe the whole league goes down in the second half of a game to go to the WNBA Finals. You almost can't believe it's happening, and especially to a city and a fan base that just watched Tyrese Halliburton go down in Game 7 of the Finals. It's so unfortunate to happen. And for somebody like her, who has had such a great postseason run, to have it end that way, I know that she is just in so much mental agony, knowing her as much as I do, just extremely tough for her. And you can play, unfortunately, the what-if game with this too. What if they had her available down the stretch in that game? Is she enough to put the Fever over the edge? I tend to think there's a pretty good argument for that. But to not have her down the stretch, obviously, when you already don't have Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson and numerous other key players, it just puts you at such a disadvantage. It makes what the Fever were able to do to get to overtime even that much more remarkable, but so frustrating, certainly, to not have a player that has been so integral to all of this resiliency, to not have her in that quarter stretch of play where you would have wanted her most.
It's Pat Boylan with us. So are they going to be the favorite throughout the WNBA once fully loaded and healthy next year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they will be up there with probably a couple of teams, and obviously we'll see what the offseason looks like. There's a whole lot to be determined. Obviously, the CBA and all of that, which A, goes way over my head, and B, is impossible to predict. Hopefully that's not a storyline once, we're getting into May. But also just what does the Fever roster look like? I think you certainly have a core here in place. But if you can get it healthy, all you have to do is look at this year's team and say, imagine if you could place Caitlin Clark in there and Sophie Cunningham in there and numerous other, Ari McDonald and Sydney Colson. Imagine if you had that group to a team that went to overtime in Game 5 of a game to send you to the WNBA Finals. I think you look at that and you say, this team could have still won a championship this year with all those injuries. Without them, I think there's no question that there is championship caliber. We'll see what happens here in the finals with Vegas and Phoenix. They'll certainly be contenders. If New York keeps their group together, they'll be contenders. And Minnesota, who had the disappointing playoff bow out, will be a contender too. I would imagine, as long as those rosters stay fairly intact. But one thing that I am confident, as long as this core is together next year, and there's absolutely no reason to think they won't be, then you're talking about a team very, very capable of winning a championship, and I would imagine one with a pretty big chip on its shoulder, both in the way that this last season ended, but also for those players that weren't able to participate in most of the season and in that playoff run.
Here's Pat Boylan with us. Madison on the text line has a question for you here. Would love Pat's perspective on which of the players that came in due to the injuries will be back on the roster coming up next year. Great show. That's from Madison. Any thoughts on who later rival-wise may end up being a part of this roster next year?
You know, I actually started to think about that a little bit last night because you're watching Odyssey Sims do what she's doing and you're going, gosh, it would be great to be able to have a roster spot for her next year. It's such a tough question to answer for so many reasons. One of them being we don't know yet the roster size. That's going to be determined in, the CBA negotiation. If they're able to increase roster size, then I think there's the potential to increase the amount of players that have come in that you potentially do bring back. There are just so many moving pieces that could change this. But the great thing about what happened here is you have learned a whole lot about a bunch of these players that I think could help you. Somebody that's gotten, maybe not enough attention lately because she got hurt too is Ari McDonald. I think she had a great few months with the Fever. She came in initially for Caitlin Clark's injury. I think she's somebody that absolutely gets a big look. I think Sid Wilson, is somebody that still gets a significant look. Odyssey Sims, I would expect to get a real significant look. You don't know what your roster is going to look like and how you try to round it out. But, I think the good news for Kelly Crosskoff and Amber Cox is not only did they nail this every single time they're bringing in a hardship player, and not only did they nail that signing, but I think they also learned a whole lot more about some of these players. And as they get into the offseason next year, I think that's really, really helpful. I think it's too early to try to predict, but it's a really good question, and one that I think the Fever are advantaged in trying to answer that question because they had to figure out everything that they did this year. And it wouldn't shock me in the least bit if multiple players that were brought in this season that didn't start the year were on this team in 2026. But again, we'll have to see what the roster size is and what the makeup is and, where the cap room is and all of that once we get closer to the season next year.
We should note that Pat gets about a 4 or 5 day breather, and then he starts coming up next week with the Pacer preseason right there, right? Is that when it begins for you?
You got it. And by the way, let me be very clear about this. That's how I would love it. In fact, I wish there wasn't a break. I wish we were talking about the Fever in the WNBA finals. We experienced this on the last go-around because the Pacers went deep into the WNBA season, like 5 weeks into the WNBA season. But I wouldn't have it any other way. We had a couple of years there where the Pacers season was ending in mid-April and the Fever season was ending in early September, and I will take this any day of the week, and I will look forward to walking in that studio from time to time and catching up with you, my friend.
Good to see you on Pacers Media Day on Monday as well, Pat. I thank you for your time, and we'll do a lot coming up here during the Pacers season as well, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, John. Thanks for having me on.
Pat Boylan on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, voice of the Fever, Pacers Radio Network. Jackson Merrill has an RBI. Padres out like they were yesterday early. Top of the first inning, 1-0 over the Cubs. This is the opportunity for the Cubs to move on with a win. That game is underway officially in wild card game at Wrigley Field in Chicago, game number 2, even at a run apiece, top of the 7th inning. But it looks like the Tigers are threatening in Cleveland. Tigers one up in that best of 3. Again, top of the 7th inning, the game with the Tigers and the Guardians in Cleveland tied at a run apiece. Red Sox, Yankees with Boston up a game in that best of 3. And yeah, Reds and Dodgers coming up later on tonight as well. Kind of a unique situation for our next guest. On the other side, Kirk Morrison is a brand new member of the Raiders radio network. Jason Horowitz, their play-by-play voice, joined us on the show yesterday. His partner, the former NFL defensive player, joins us coming up next. A very unique perspective he has. We'll get to that, along with that team and the loss of their left tackle coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Kevin Bowen, the latest on the Colts injuries, who participated in practice today, who didn't. That might be interesting for you to know. And Shaq Leonard will officially retire coming up on Sunday. Talk about that with Kevin coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Lance Mallister from the big one in Cincinnati is going to be here coming up after 5. Kansas tickets and Bullseye Event Center passes for you as well. BullseyeEventGroup.com and the Colts VIP tailgate presented by Hayes & Sons Restoration. We're going to give you a chance to win those passes coming up throughout the course of the afternoon. The stream, the app, HD Radio, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you all for joining us. Updated on baseball, postseason wise, and then some. Throughout the afternoon, don't go anywhere else. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Lance Mallister is going to join us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Parks Place Pub, I mentioned that tomorrow. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. We have you covered. Week 5 picks. I think I did well. I was 11-5 in week 1, sucked in week 2, 11-5 in week 3. I think I was somewhere in that neighborhood in week number 4 as well. Me, Brent Halverson, Matt, Parks Place Pub, and Fishers coming up tomorrow. Cannot wait to see you there. And for the first time on Friday, Bud Light Blue Friday, I have Raiders Colts tickets for you with our good friends from Zinc and Bud Light. Binkley's on College, which is basically Broad Ripple. Binkley's, I've been there before, but never done a show there. Binkley's on Friday, Bud Light, your chance at Raiders Colts tickets. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, this is going to be an incredibly unique perspective. His first year as color analyst on the radio network, his partner, Jason Horowitz, was on the show yesterday, the play-by-play voice of the Las Vegas Raiders, but literally grew up a fan, played for, and now is broadcasting as a part of the radio team. The former defensive player, you know him very well because he also played some time in Jacksonville. Kirk Morrison's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Kirk, thank you very much for the time. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing today?
Trying to think about this. You grew up as a fan of the Raiders, and then you play for the Raiders,
Correct.
And now you're broadcasting for the Raiders. I'm quite sure not a lot of folks, and we may have one here in Joe Wrights that also has done that, but very few have the opportunity for that trifecta as you do.
Yeah, you mentioned it, the trifecta, the triangle. I mean, just to have the unique aspect of having been a fan first, player second, now analyst third. I mean, I've worn every hat. So I've kind of felt every emotion, and I take those emotions with me week in and week out now in being the team's color analyst because it's been a roller coaster from when I was young all the way to where I am now. So definitely excited for the opportunity each and every single week and just grateful and humble for it.
Well, and Kirk, not to mention it's appropriate because the season so far for the Raiders, the team that you're covering, has been somewhat of a roller coaster in its own right to this point, has it not?
Yeah, it's just been one in which, you start the season off and you get a nice road victory on the road against a really, to me, I think a good New England Patriots football team that's still finding its way. But you lose 3 consecutive games in a row, one on Monday night to the Chargers. Then you have a really, really poor game on a short week against the Commanders over in Washington and really had an opportunity to get back on track, get to 500, against the Chicago Bears, but 4 turnovers on the day, 3 interceptions from Gino Smith, and now you're sitting here after 4 games, right, a quarter of the season pretty much. You're still trying to figure out who is this football team, who is this Raiders team, what is our identity, and hopefully that comes out this week in a trip to Indianapolis.
Well, and I'm kind of curious. The left tackle situation is a tough one as well. And we talked to Jason about this yesterday, the way that Bears game went down. The one thing that the Raiders, and we know this around here very well from Carlson and his act over the years, and certainly with Tom McMahon and what he does with special teams, normally that operation, at least from what we have seen from a Colts angle, has been flawless in the past, and it was far from that on Sunday for sure.
Yeah, just a couple things that had to change. Michael Mayer usually is your in man on the line on your field goal unit. Michael Mayer was out last week, got a concussion versus the Washington Commanders the week prior, so he's out of the game. And look, you have Jonah Laulu, who's a rotational piece at the defensive tackle spot. He's your in man on the line of scrimmage. And just from me watching film and watching it, I thought he took a stance or his alignment kind of gave up too much of the corner. I feel like, not being on their regular basis, if he's a little more square and has a little more width in his stance, that makes the corner a little bit longer for Josh Blackwell, the guy who blocked the kick at the end. And so, inexperienced guy, they went after him, and Blackwell got the block. So I look at it more, as you mentioned, I thought the operation was flawless in that aspect, but just one key piece of the block, of trying to block up front didn't get fully executed, and that's where the block came in.
Kirk Morrison of the radio network of the Raiders, kind enough to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Raiders and Colts coming up on Sunday, Lucas Oil Stadium. The ride to kickoff starts at the Bullseye Event Center with me at 9 a.m. So where's the Gino Smith that we witnessed in week number 1?
Yeah, I think right now he's pressing a little bit. I think he's trying to make the right play. I think he had a regression in week 2 against the Chargers where, he had 3 interceptions there, and you trying to force the football a little bit too much. I thought that's where we haven't seen Gino come back from that. I thought he played in spurts in Washington, but you're kind of down behind early on, and so you kind of had to do things out of necessity. I thought this was a game that he can really get and have a bounce back against the Bears, but yet, just a couple of interceptions and ones that I did a breakdown on my Twitter account at Kirk Morrison of 2 of the 3 interceptions. I showed all 3, but 2 of them I really credit, the coverage of Dennis Allen, who's the D coordinator for the Bears, and what he was able to do and kind of put Geno Smith in a predicament where he's staring a guy down. And I thought that the way that they disguised their coverage, the Bears really put a number on Geno on a couple of those interceptions. But I think he'll be better. He'll be fine. I think what happens is you have such high expectations for him to be the franchise guy, and he doesn't have a healthy Brock Bowers, who's his tight end. He's got a rookie wide receiver in Dante Thornton still figuring it out, and Jacoby Myers as well. So I see it just part of the early growing pains of the season. But I think that he can get out of this little slump that he's in that we've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Have they had the training wheels, the proverbial training wheels, on their rookie running back, Ashton Jeanty, so far this season?
Say that again?
Have they had the training wheels a little bit on him? It seems like they could turn if they wanted to. I mean, maybe it's Chip Kelly. Maybe it's just what they're doing with him as a young player. It seems like that they haven't turned him loose as much with his level of talent as they could have maybe in some of these games. Is that just from the outside looking in, or is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I think, you got to go ahead and check out last week's game because he was on display in full effect. He was outstanding last week. The way that he ran the football, look, he changed his stance. He went back to the Michael Myers Halloween movie stance that he used throughout his college career at Boise State. And to me, that was really effective for him, that he was able to start seeing the hole a little bit better. I mean, he had a big breakout 64-yard gain, and he also had 2 touchdowns receiving. He had 3 touchdowns last week.
Yeah.
I think the training wheels were off because it was to a point where you just saw him just say, you know what, I'm going to go back to what's been comfortable for me. And it just seems like that Raiders offensive line, they had a good job, and they had a nice job of blocking up front, and he made some unbelievable cuts. The vision and, his elite contact balance as well was on display. So I think it was just a learning process for a rookie running back. We're seeing it with Junkins and Travion Henderson and a lot of these young rookie running backs. And so when he got his opportunity, I was excited for him last week, and he took care of it.
I was kind of curious, too, how that you think will play into what they do offensively against the Colts and their defense on Sunday, as far as what we witnessed against the Bears and where he is so far in his very young rookie career with the Raiders. What do you expect him as far as workload on Sunday here in Indy?
Well, right now, I think he's the best offensive player for the Raiders, right? With Brock Bowers not being at 100%. I think you learn from what you've done on the road in the first couple of weeks. And I think the big thing for me is that the last time they were on the road against Washington, their special teams unit kind of let them down a little bit, and you just didn't do things. Your tackling was really poor. I would say this week is one in which how much more can you add onto the plate of Ashton Jeanty against a really good team in the Indianapolis Colts. I watched the game from last week. I covered the Rams the previous 9 years before I took this job with the Raiders. So I always keeping a look on the Rams and watching the way that Indianapolis deployed their team last week. You would think that, hey, they let one slip away against the Rams, and so how do the Raiders take advantage of maybe a team that maybe lost a little bit of confidence last week, and so that may be just running the football, trying to drain the clock, try to shorten up the game, as well as this offense has been able to score so many points in Indy.
What do you think about what you saw in the Colts against the Rams? Because it is still clearly a work in progress here, and they were 3-0, and that was kind of the best gauge for them so far. And really, you look at it this way, they really did themselves in more than anything else in that game Sunday.
Correct. Yeah, you realize how good Matthew Stafford is, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
That dude's a baller, man. I mean, you could say, hey, give me your top 5 NFL quarterbacks, and I don't know how far we got to wait until someone says, Matthew Stafford's name. But yet when you watch him play, he puts the ball where it needs to go. And, I've been a big Puka Nacua fan since he was all the way back at the University of Washington before he transferred to BYU. So I looked at it because I wanted to see how good is this Colts team. And look, there are some parts of this football team. You say they're outstanding. Daniel Jones has kind of been what this team has been looking for. They've always been a competitor, but you need a consistent quarterback play. You're getting that. And so going on the road to Los Angeles, late start, I felt like this was a game in which the Colts had, but they learned more about themselves of how they need to finish. I think this game was also all about finishing and the little mistakes. Maybe it's Adonai Mitchell fumbling the ball out of the end zone, right? Those types of things, or having 10 men on the field on a Tutu Atwell's 88-yard touchdown. That margin of mistakes cannot happen if you want to win games in this league. And so I thought that was a learning point, just a time of learning for the Colts and Shane Steichen for this football team for the rest of the season.
Kirk Morrison is kind enough to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Well, congratulations on the gig. I can tell that you enjoy it a great deal, and always being a Raider fan is probably incredibly helpful. Hey, by the way, too, did you think of what we witnessed from Daniel Jones so far here in the first now 4 games? Did you think that that's what we would see after he made that 6-year transition from the Giants via Minnesota to come here in free agency? Did you expect that level of play from him?
I always have a soft spot for Daniel because I also do college football for ESPN on Saturdays before I do my Raiders on Sundays. And so I've always had a soft spot for Daniel, meeting him when he was still at Duke and David Cutcliffe was his head coach. And sitting down and talking to Daniel back then, you're just like, man, this dude's got it, man. He's going to be a good one in the NFL. He's just a solid player. He doesn't have, to me, and this is no slight to him, there is not like these super elite traits when it comes to Daniel Jones. I think he does everything pretty good. And good sometimes is enough when you've got the other guys around you, when you've got, Jonathan Taylor and you got Tyler Warren and you got these other guys around you. You're just saying, hey, just don't turn the ball over, but get the ball to where it needs to go. That's what it is. You're not putting the entire offense on his shoulders. You're just saying, hey, manage us a little bit. And this is not calling him a game manager, but this is a guy who knows how to conduct his offense. And like I said, I've been a big fan for him, and this was a perfect opportunity, the perfect team for him to go to. It's kind of, like I say, less distractions than what's going on in New York where they overanalyze, where I think in Indianapolis you realize, hey, week in and week out, we're in a good division to play in. We're one of the better teams now, and it's because we got a quarterback that is focused and just getting the playmakers the football. That's the easy part. I think he's handling it so far.
All right. So are you still doing ESPN and the college stuff on Saturdays before you do the Raider stuff, correct?
Yeah, man. I'll be down at I got UVA, Virginia at Louisville on Saturday before I make the drive up to Indianapolis. So I got a big fun-filled football weekend, but excited to see, an undefeated Louisville team, see where they're going to be at in the ACC. And, obviously Virginia with that big, victory over Florida State last Friday night. So I'm excited to see that bunch. But I know you guys are over in Big Ten country, but not too far away. You still got some ACC ball, so I'll be doing a little bit of both.
I was going to ask you this in closing, too. How much have you seen of IU? Are you at all surprised and shocked of the evolution under Kurt Cignetti of IU football in that program last year and now into this year?
First of all, Fernando Mendoza, I've covered him the last couple of years over at Cal. I'm glad you guys are starting to see how good this quarterback is. To me, he wears his emotions on his sleeves. He's the guy that when you sit down, and I interviewed him a couple of times, you walk away and you say, was that real? He cannot be this genuine. He cannot be this much of a team player doing what he's supposed to do. And so a lot of people gave him flack for running out of the end zone last week, versus Rutgers. But if you know Fernando Mendoza, he was told to run out the clock, and he ran out the clock, right? He didn't care where he was at on the field. The dude was just running around, man. I love that about him. But, I think Kurt Signetti, just knowing him and covering him at JMU, he wears his emotions right there in front. He's not afraid. He is confident. It's not arrogant. It is confidence. And that's his football team over the last couple of years. Who would have told me that Indiana is now a powerhouse football team? And look, only lost 3 games. Is it 3 or 4 games in the last?
Notre Dame and Ohio State a year ago. So yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
a year ago, that's it. I mean, it's a powerhouse now. But Fernando Mendoza, for them to secure him. I mean, look, there's a lot of teams, college football teams, who wanted Mendoza. I know for sure 4 other teams that offered him big money, but to land him, you got a guy for the future. It's not just 1 year, but it may be 1 year the way that he plays. I'm telling you, he's starting to get a lot of NFL buzz. So you got a good one at IU with Fernando Mendoza.
That is Kirk Morrison right there. Virginia and Louisville on Saturday, and the Raiders and the Colts coming up on Sunday, and he's kind enough to join us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, well done. I appreciate that, man. Great catching up with you. Continue to do what you do. Have some fun, calling ball, and hopefully we'll track you down coming up here when you get in on Sunday. Thanks, Kirk.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it, fellas. Anytime. Have a good one.
Kirk Morrison, the former Raider, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. It was good. I'm glad I asked him about IU, too. He wanted to get all in on Mendoza right there. That's well done. Hey, shout out to a Terre Haute, Indiana native. And you guys have asked for me to get him on the show. I'll tell you who he is and what he did, because he just played the left-hander a significant role in MLB's postseason. Do that coming up on the other side. Kevin Bowen coming up at the top of the hour. Lance Mallister, the big one in Cincy after 5. Stuff to give away, too. Don't go anywhere. The Stream the App, HD Radio. We have the text line at 317-239-1070 as well. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Words you just said.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, Guardians just go yard. Take a 2-1 advantage. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, too. They're trying to stay alive, of course, down a game in that best-of-3 AL wild card. Now up 2-1 as the Tigers are pitching to the Guardians in the bottom of the 8th inning. I should recognize this because from Terre Haute, Indiana, and South Vigo High School, let's enter in Tim Herron, who a lot of people have asked for me to get on the show here recently, and probably should because the left-hander came in an incredibly tough situation a little bit earlier where I believe that the Tigers had runners on the corners with nobody out. And Herron was outstanding when he came in, delivered big time. 2 strikeouts, no runs scored, and now the Guardians take advantage of that as they get a run in the bottom of the 8th inning. And I believe also another runner on right here, too. So threatening once again are the Guardians up 2-1, bottom of the 8th inning, 1 out as they try to stay alive and press this to a decisive Game 3 of the AL wild card. Of course, I know Cubs fans want to know all about what the Cubs are doing so far. Hey, Padres kind of did the same thing they did yesterday in game number 1. Got out early, 1-0 their advantage. They put 2 on with nobody out. Now, the Cubs still only surrendered the 1 run, and we saw what happened yesterday when Suzuki and Kelly went back-to-back, and that was basically the difference in that game. Padres 1, Cubs 0, as the Cubs are batting with a runner on first and nobody out in the bottom of the 3rd inning right there. Red Sox and Yankees with the Red Sox up 1-0 in that best-of-3. Game 2 tonight at 6 o'clock. Reds and Dodgers, and that was not good whatsoever last night. Like, as I mentioned, the complete opposite happened. Remember, I wanted a great Hunter Green performance, and you didn't get that. Reds lose and lose big. They try to stay alive against the Dodgers in Chavez Ravine in Game 2 coming up tonight. That's at 9 o'clock. And by the way, the Guardians now lead 3-1. Another RBI hit for the Guardians in the bottom of the 8th inning. This reminder, Win Schuler spreadability. Hey, shout out to Jason, who sent me a message a little bit earlier today. He has the spreadability, whether it's original sharp cheddar, bacon and cheddar, or jalapeno pepper. The spreadability for the fall of 2025 in your football season, whether you're tailgating, partying, or simply put, snacking on the couch, the spreadability of Win Schuler's is there with whatever you're doing. Crackers, chips, vegetables, burgers. Win Schuler's spreadability. You can find it at your local Meijer, find it at your local Gordon food store, or look for it and tell me where you find it, your local grocer's refrigerator. That's Win Schuler's.
Boy, Ploy.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, tomorrow we're going to be at Parks Place Pub. We're in Fishers. I need everybody to join us. Tomorrow's going to be a blast. Matt and Matt will make their picks. Brent Holverson and I felt pretty good about week number 4. Hopefully the same for week 5. Officially underway. That is tomorrow night with the 49ers and Rams. And by the way, welcome to the month of October, everybody. Playoff baseball going on. Bottom of 3. The Cubs at the plate with 2 outs and a runner on second. They trail the Padres game 2 with that best of 3. With the Cubs in ownership of that first game win. 1-0 Padres right now. And the Guardians in the bottom of the 8th inning, a 3-1 lead over the Tigers. The Guardians trying to push this with a win to a decisive game number 3 in that AL wild card. Somebody had asked this. Yeah, I go both. I go bullseye beginning at 9. And then normally, as you know, we'll talk to our next guest on Sunday morning while I'm a bullseye, and then move up to Touchdown Town for the Colts pregame huddle. Somebody had asked, because they have bands in Touchdown Town, who was the band? Groove Smash is the band. Groove Smash will start at 10 a.m. I'm assuming Groove Smash has played there before. I don't know too much about him. Anybody have any info on Groove Smash? That's who's playing in Touchdown Town. We shall be there coming up at 10 a.m. on the Colts pregame huddle. We'll hang with you then. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he'll join me at about 9 o'clock in the morning, getting you set for yet another week of Colts football, week 5. This team 3-1 in the season. He's been covering the Colts today. Guys that are back, guys that did not participate in a significant celebration of retirement coming up on Sunday was announced earlier today. Kevin Bowen of the morning show, along with James Boyd and Jeff Rickard, kind enough to join us now on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Good afternoon, Kev. How are you?
John, good afternoon to you. I'm good.
Groove Smash. Have you ever seen Groove Smash play here locally? Know anything about him?
Boy, I can't say I have. Granted, my venturing out to see live music has waned a little bit here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're about to have another baby. Another baby.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of my days at the old Skeller or Blind Owl or any of the other great establishments that I've ventured to or used to venture to. It's not ringing a bell.
So, what's the ETA of the new babe?
We are due the 10th of November. If I had to guess, Max definitely came early. I would guess we would maybe try and do a little induction the week prior. So, yeah, probably early November.
Oh, man, that's not too far away. A month right now in counting. Hey, is this one of your favorite times of year, considering the overlap of important sports?
Oh, easily. Yeah. I mean, it's my 162-game baseball watching is not there, but, I mean, yesterday and even with our Reds, just absolutely yesterday in typical Reds fashion, those first 3 games, I mean, to watch those, the anticipation, the climactic moments in those late innings, Chapman loading the bases and getting out of it, and what, Crochet and Screwball did on the road. I mean, that's stuff. I mean, that's just great, great baseball. And I'm reminded of it every year, how much you just love playoff baseball. I'm a huge, huge college football guy, and I also love some hoops with that getting started as well. So, yes, it is. What a great, great time of year. I love it.
No, I would agree, too. And even though it was a glorified batting practice for the Dodgers last night, I'm still glad the Reds are a part of it.
It's funny. I don't know if you felt this way late last night, obviously going back and forth between, Fever and Reds, but, here I am, kind of shifting gears to the Fever there as, the game was still super competitive and, who knows how that game was going to play out, and the Reds are getting their ass kicked. And then, lo and behold, there I am in the 8th inning, just dog cussing Tyler Stevenson for swinging at some of those balls that he swung at. I'm literally listening to you and Tucker Barnhart yesterday talk about swinging at bad pitches.
Yeah.
I know Tucker loves himself from Tyler Stevenson, but dang, oh man, I was so mad. And it's like, I did not think my blood pressure getting that high on a Tuesday night, nearly at midnight for both the Fever and the Reds. I mean, that can't be healthy for me.
Nah, you're okay. I mean, you're a young, healthy man, human being dude. You're good to go, I think, right? You're not on blood pressure meds or anything, are you?
Are you yelling? No, not yet. Are you yelling at the TV when Stevenson strikes out?
I've yelled at the television so much with this group swinging at bad balls, it drives me insane. So, and Guardians, by the way, Guardians just went yard again. They have broken this game wide ass open in the bottom of the 8th inning right now, trying to stay alive and looking as if they're going to do that because they have, again, let's see, Bo Naylor just goes yard. Was that a 3-run shot here, I believe? So I like the best of 3 format. It's incredibly entertaining to me. I may not like it after midnight tonight with the Reds, but yeah, 6-1 right now. The Guardians over the Tigers as they look to push this to a decisive game 3, Kev.
Yeah, I would agree on the best of 3 aspect to it. I don't know if, whatever, the purists in baseball probably don't love it, but it's entertaining, and, it looks like we're at least going to get one game 3, and hopefully we'll get a few more, particularly the one for you and I's sake coming up late tonight.
I need a little bit of magic later on tonight, Kev, on a Wednesday night for the Redlegs. No doubt about that whatsoever. So the return of Alec Pierce today, Kenny Moore, and I think Kyle Eyes still remain out. But before we get to that, the significance to you, what's Shaq Leonard mean to you? As far as his short career here, it was almost like it was a high-level comet that was in here and out of here as quickly as possible.
One of the most electric football players I've certainly ever covered. And, I don't know if that's a word you necessarily use for linebackers, but he was exactly that. The knack for the game-changing plays, seemingly, when they needed. Hell, I remember one against the Raiders one year. Seemingly the Colts and Raiders play every year, but just when the fourth quarter rolled around and the defense could be giving up, whatever, a couple touchdowns in a row, and then Leonard would make a play, and you're just waiting for 53 to do that. And I think that's just awesome by all parties involved. Leonard obviously, getting cut right before Thanksgiving, the awkwardness as he just had his charity event that next night, if I remember correctly, or maybe even it was the same day. I just kind of hated how it ended. Any time, the physical injury toll plays into that, it gets awkward. And, I'm not saying he needs to be going in the Ring of Honor, but, have him get his moment. And, he'll certainly be banging the anvil with some energy and the retire as a Colt. Great work by all parties involved. And I think it'll provide, some nice juice in the building for an opponent that probably won't provide much juice in the Raiders.
Yeah. Well, and I just talked to Kirk Morrison, who played for him and is their radio play-by-play. I shouldn't say their analyst. He's alongside the play-by-play man, Jason Horowitz. And this has been, it's weird. They started out and Gino Smith looked fantastic, and then since that point in time, it's been more a struggle of anything else. And really, it almost felt like not to the magnitude that the Colts did on Sunday giving the game away, but certainly it kind of felt that way late in that Raiders game when they lost to the Bears on Sunday, too.
Yeah, Gino is throwing the ball to the other team a whole lot. I think it's 7 interceptions. And we saw Joe Flacco get benched today, and he's got 6. So, yeah, Gino's had his issues in coming over to the Raiders, and, they definitely have some star power. I think, Max Crosby is honestly one of the more beloved players around the league. You want to talk about motor. He can change a game. He almost did last week against the Bears. And Brock Bowers has had some big games in the NFL, granted a little quieter this year. And Ashton Genty, if you believe what the Raiders are saying, he went back to his college stance last week and had his best game as a pro. So, when you saw what Puka Nacua did to you week 4, I kind of go back to week 1 where, you've got a player in Tyreek Hill that's capable of taking over a game, and yet you did a great job and just kind of keeping his day to just kind of an average Tyreek Hill day, maybe a little bit below average. And I think that has got to be the goal for those kind of star-type players coming up on Sunday. Don't Puka Nacua it where the great player has the greatest game of his NFL career, but, they've done a great job on Crosby really in these matchups in recent years. Kind of keep as quiet as you can. And again, even if he has an average game, I think you can live with that. It's when some of these star players that the Colts have played have, Myles Garrett a few years ago, when they take over the game and have a career game, that's when, things start to go awry.
Did Lou Anarumo's explanation for 10 men on the field and the explanation for how he handled some circumstances out there against Nakua on Sunday defensively, did that give you a warm and fuzzy feeling, or did it make you feel even worse like it did me?
Yeah, I don't think anybody explaining 10 men on the field, unless everyone was puking behind the bench, would probably be the only justifiable explanation of that. So I don't think he could have said anything. The whole we'd rather double Adams or we'd rather shadow Adams than Puka, I could listen to it, but again, as the game moves along, Puka was just cooking you so much that 4th and 2, it can't be man coverage and Xavier Howard on him. Like that just can't happen. So
it's one of the reasons why you went out and got one of the best at corner in free agency, isn't? That's
sure.
what I would think.
And why not? Why not throw a safety over the top to double as well? Like, okay, if you want to leave Mooney Ward on Adams, I get that Adams is a very good red zone player, but bracket Puka as best you can. If all that work is underneath, you should have an ability to try and do that. And, Xavier Howard, who did miss today's practice with a personal matter, so I hope everything's okay with his family. The explanation with Howard, it just sounds so, nepotism isn't the right word, but it's just so prior history. And, I brought it up on our show earlier in the week. It sounds very Frank Reich, Adam Vinatieri from 2019 when, Frank kept on talking about the history of the player, and it's like, well, Frank, this is a 46-year-old injured kicker. Like, that's not the same Adam Vinatieri, kicking game-winning field goals in, Houston to win a Super Bowl. A 32-year-old corner might as well be a 46-year-old kicker, frankly, with the wear and tear of that position and how, when it goes for you, it can go in a hurry considering you're kind of out there on an island. This is a dude that didn't even play football last year either. So that's the explanation from Lou right now that, when you hear stubbornness and you hear, some of the stuff from Cincinnati, I think we are seeing a bit of that play out right now.
I almost think about it this way too. It's almost like if that's your answer, then you're telling us you don't have any answers. And that, to me, makes it even worse.
Well, he is a guy that has shied away from playing young guys. We saw that in Cincinnati.
Right.
And, Jonathan Edwards would probably be next up. I guess you could have a combination of Travarius Ward, Mekhi Blackman, who they traded for just before the start of the season, the guy who fell down on the Atwell INT, and then Mike Hilton, assuming Kenny is going to miss this week. I'm not acting like you're sitting there with, a bunch of Ronnie Lotts on the depth chart, but Xavier Howard, again, did not play football last year. He walked into Colts practice probably now at this point a little over a month ago, and he was a starter from day one. He didn't have to earn anything. The back of the baseball card, again, without playing football last year, sent him right into the starting lineup. That's where it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me with that. So, again, it's a little travel baseball-y with, that parent's sponsoring the jerseys. We should probably put the son on the team. It just, I don't like how it smells. I don't like how it looks on the field. And I get that your options behind him might not be, saving, but at this point, I'm ready to see him.
So Kevin Bowen, the morning show, along with Jeff Rickard and James Boyd. Kev's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You mentioned practice. You attended a little bit earlier today. Guys that were back compared to guys that were missing. Logically, who do you think we end up seeing return? Who may miss? And then what about that inactive list? This may be the most anticipated inactive list if we don't know regarding the status of A.D. Mitchell, healthy scratch-wise, before a game we've had in a while. That's going to be interesting if we don't know prior to the start of the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I can't recall the last time we've had something like that where, you can kind of think of, hey, is a guy going to be active or not from a punishment standpoint? Like the Anthony Richardson stuff, you knew before the inactive list came out 90 minutes before kick. So definitely will be something that will be interesting to keep an eye on. Good news, Alec Pierce, blue jersey at practice, so seems to be, through a good chunk of the concussion protocol. So I would say right now, good sign for him to return. And Mac Gonzalez was back at practice today, just limited with that toe injury. But I think that was kind of one of the more under the radar storylines from Sunday. I get why we didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but I felt like with Dalton Tucker starting at right guard, I thought the Rams got, pretty consistent pressure, probably the most pressure we've seen from a Colts opponent this season. So having your normal starting lineup back, O-line wise, especially against a guy like Max Crosby, I think it's something that is definitely needed, and good news here early in the week. But yeah, to your point, an active list, what does it look like? Again, the personal matter for Xavier Howard missing today, and then we'll see how the A.D. Mitchell thing goes the rest of the week.
So, what do you think happens? You think that it's just the return of Alec Pierce is kind of an easy out for them not to give Mitchell any reps and he will be active, or do you think that they deactivate him as a healthy scratch on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm torn. I could see them going the full inactive route. Again, he's a repeatable offender in the trust or lack thereof category. And when you hear coaches talk, they talk about the T word a lot. Now, again, this is a guy that does show up on time. He is a hard worker by all accounts, so that necessarily isn't there. But he was unreliable last year, and to me, I'd argue that holding penalty might have been just the whole fundamental aspect of where he was at on that play was maybe the bigger issue in attempting. And it was kind of odd he was the only wideout on the field. We were talking about that a little bit earlier today in the media room for that play. It's like, could you have Pittman, could you have Doolin out there instead of him in that moment too? So, yeah, I could see that. But to your point, John, when these wideouts were healthy earlier in the year, I want to say Mitchell played 7 total snaps against the Broncos in week 2. And I want to say that number was like 15, maybe week 1. So, when everyone's healthy at wideout, he's really not playing much, and he doesn't play special teams. So, if Pierce is back, I would have no issue in sitting him for a week. To me, that is practicing some accountability with, again, a guy that has, struggled in the trust area. I would have no issue in that. Maybe you're not sending the biggest message in the world, but I think you'd be sending something to him. Whereas if you dress him and, take his 10 snaps down to 3, I don't know if that sends maybe as big of a message if that's something that you're trying to go for.
Not that this matters whatsoever, and I don't know why I'm bringing it up, to be quite honest. I guess because I'm me in this case, but I didn't see this anywhere but this particular Rams line report where it says ESPN's Jeremy Fowler says his sense is that Anthony Richardson would like to be open to joining a premier play caller such as Sean McVay. And I know this is incredibly non-story. I don't know why I'm even, again, bringing it up. Otherwise, it's just me bringing it up here. But I don't know if – I didn't see that, I guess, from Jeremy Fowler. Did you see or read that anywhere other than this particular report? Not that it matters again, but I guess it's something you can bring up if you cover the team.
Yeah, I did not. No, I did not see or hear about that. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I feel like Fowler maybe had some reporting from the Richardson camp back when all of this went down a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Or at the start of the season. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. And, this is the time of year, trade deadline. We're in trade deadline month. The trade deadline is, I believe, the end of October is typically when it is. So, yeah, I don't know if that's potentially, whatever. Let's state an obvious thing and, have his have his representation agree on it.
I would like to think he would probably like to play for any play caller at some point, right? Anybody that calls a play, he'll play for, right? Probably, if he gets a chance to play.
He'll take John Michael Vincent calling plays.
Yeah, I'll call plays for you.
He'll be happy about that. Yeah.
I'll call plays for you. What are you going to remember the most out of this year of basketball, professionally speaking, from the Pacers and the Fever? Was it being close? Was it showing the intense pride of overcoming a lot? Or just the ultimate disappointing of being there and then not getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, it is just so odd, both the endings to it, with Halliburton and then Mitchell last night, and obviously Caitlin Clark. I'd like to think the memory will be just how a fan base absolutely adored both of those teams. Like, in professional sports, I think some people don't love them at times because they don't feel like a great connection to that team. Whereas, like, in the high school and college ranks, potentially you can feel a little bit more of that. And, maybe school allegiance helps you out in that area. But, I don't like the pro game. All they do is whine and whatever, bitch and moan about money and bitch and moan about the refs and this and that. Whereas in regards to the Pacer team and the Fever team, they inspired via hard work, overcoming things, underdog story, resiliency, never give up. And, like, those are attributes that we naturally gravitate towards, I think, as humans in any walk of life, but particularly from a sporting standpoint. That is true. And I think you hear people nationally talk about the Pacers season in that light. And so I do think that aspect of, if you are a father and a son, if you are a mother and a daughter, whatever the connection is here locally, you could really get behind both the Pacers and the Fever. And that is not always the case. And it's not always the case for reasons outside of just winning. Obviously, winning matters, but, when you're doing it in the fashion that both of those franchises did it, I think, and again, it might sound sappy, but I think that's really cool and, again, really inspiring and something that people enjoy thoroughly. And it's probably why, honestly, the endings just hurt that much more. I mean, first off, it's a nightmarish end to both those movies. And obviously the Kelsey Mitchell injury situation sounds nowhere near as severe as Tyrese's situation. But, I mean, just when you watched it last night, it was eerie. I mean, the towels around her and the stretcher out there. I mean, for a brief second there when they went to break, I'm like, is this like a DeMar Hamlin situation? It was kind of a wild, couple of minutes there. And again, fortunately, it was just kind of a freak thing from a cramping standpoint, it sounds like. I know Kelsey Mitchell released a statement earlier kind of going into a little bit more detail. But, yeah, I think you kind of summarized it all, John. We will remember the how they played and what they overcame to get to those respective ends to their season.
Lower leg cramp. I mean, it was just like almost even a full body cramp is how that was described. I can't even pronounce how she described it on social media when she sent that out a little bit earlier. But, yeah, it doesn't sound good. There's no doubt. No,
and, like, she is one of the more durable players out there. And, she plays like an Energizer bunny. Like, that was just so wild to see.
Yeah.
And, yeah, her explanation, like you just said, kind of detailed it a little bit more. So,
when's the last time you had a cramp? Did you ever have those cramps at night when you cramp up and it's like somebody grabs wires and pulls on the back of your leg like that? And then your mom says go eat a banana or something like that back in the day.
I know. I feel like my right foot cramps every other night. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm never going to be able to walk again. So, yeah, that's probably the only time I'll ever compare myself to Kelsey Mitchell.
Cramp. That is that's something. You know what? It's funny too. You look at the difference in that game. 3 3-point makes in overtime, and 2 of which were up against the shot clock that you got to get it up. And it wasn't talent, versus talent overwhelming by the Aces. It was basic 3 3-point makes in overtime. That was the difference.
I mean, their shot making, for those that did not watch overtime last night, these are not basic threes. This is not, throwing it around the horn and getting it to the open woman. I mean, it was Chelsea Gray and, Jackie Young showing why she is the all-time leading scorer in the state of Indiana, regardless of boy or girl. And, even Dana Evans from Indiana made some plays, and Jewel Lloyd. It was, for what the Fever went through in that game and yet to still get it all the way to overtime and punch back. I thought there for a second they were going to do it. They got it to like 82-80, if I remember correctly. They had a couple of just golden looks at it. I thought if they could have taken the lead, now it's really going to be clinching on the other side of it. And you could feel, it felt like Asia Wilson. It was like, oh my gosh, this is trying to kind of drag to the finish line. But
that weak ass call against Aaliyah Boston had a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, and that being her 6th, it was like, are you kidding
well,
me?
that's why. Yeah, that's why.
Right.
So. All right, Kev, I appreciate you. You guys have a blast. Where were you this morning? You at Lucas Oil Stadium with the Horizon League? Is that was your location?
Yeah, Horizon League Media Day. So last year they were up at Corteva Coliseum where their conference tournament is, up on the state fair, up at the state fairgrounds. So Final Four, of course, for the men at Lucas Oil this year, and the Horizon League is a host along with IU Indy. So they were over there at Lucas Oil for their Media Day, and we saw the announcement yesterday, the women's Final Four. Again, with the Horizon League and with IU Indy, they will be moving from Gainbridge Fieldhouse to Lucas Oil in 2028. So a little bit of a bigger capacity crowd for that Final Four in a few years.
Kevin Bowen, the morning show was he, James Boyd, and Jeff Rickard back in studio coming up tomorrow morning beginning at 7 a.m. Kev's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I appreciate you, my brother. We'll do it again next week. Hey, by the way, too, Sunday morning, 9 a.m.
Sunday morning, 9 a.m. I will talk to you, sir.
You got it. Kevin Bowen, Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Guardians even up their best of 3 with the Tigers at a game apiece. A 6-1 win. That just concluded. Padres still that 1-run advantage, 1-0, bottom of the 4th inning. The Cubs bat, man on second, 2 out, bottom of the 4th inning. They're up a game in that best of 3 Wrigley Field in Chicago. Yeah, Red Sox, Yankees. Yankees try to stay alive at home at 6 o'clock. Reds try to hang in, down a game. They're best of 3. Dodgers try to move on. 9 o'clock from L.A. coming up later on tonight. Lance Mallister, the big one in Cincinnati. He joins us coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. And stuff to give away. Don't go anywhere. Bullseye passes, Kansas tickets, your calls at 239-1070, and the text line at 317-239-1070 as well. Log on, and we'll read what you have to say. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
holy hand grenade.
Yes, of course. The holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Right.
1, 2, 5. Lisa, 3.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Kevin Bowen, podcast 1075thefan.com. Kirk Morrison, former Raider defensive player, part of the radio network of the Raiders. Also does ESPN. I think he said he had Virginia and Louisville this weekend. Really good stuff. If you missed Kirk Morrison a little bit earlier today, that podcast, 1075thefan.com, started out things with Pat Boylan, the voice of the Fever, and just an incredible effort they gave. Losing in overtime to Vegas last night on the road. But, again, losing Kelsey Mitchell in that game. Adam writes this, that was more than just cramps. That causes kidney damage, too. Have I told you, damaged kidneys right here? I'm working on one. I think one is a bit useless. I had kidney stones when I was 15, 16 years old.
I've heard that story.
Yes.
I didn't realize you
damaged
only have one.
Kidneys,
you only have one working kidney?
My filtration system is not where it should be. It is not. So I put a lot of pressure on it. With the things I consume. So, yeah, a lot of pressure on the kidney. But, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there, too. Yeah, kidney stones at 15 into 16. Shout out to Big Red for those stones. Text line 317-239-1070. They need to find a spot for Odyssey Sims on the roster. She was so good stepping in for the injuries. That's Gator and Lagodi, Indiana. I would assume that they will. I would assume somebody will because she was that good. We're keeping track of the Cubs, top of the 5th inning as the Padres bat with an out, nobody on. Fernando Tatis Jr. The Cubs did last inning, if for nothing else, chase Dylan Cease, who had given up, I think, 2 hits up until that point. Maybe it was more than that by the time that he got yanked. But the Cubs are into the bullpen now, and, I mean, hell, that's how it goes for the most part. In the postseason, you get into those bullpens early and often for the matchups. Cubs up a game, but down a run. Top of the 5th inning with Tatis Jr. batting, 1 out, Wrigley Field in Chicago. We shall keep you updated. JMV, it was a pleasure watching the Fever play. You would love to see them at full strength. However, watching how they battled, hanging in, you're exactly right as far as how we know basketball. And between the Pacers and the Fever, that's exactly how you want to see your favorite team or the teams you support play. Now, both had a great deal. Yeah, even if you don't get your ultimate goal, and believe me, man, not winning a championship sucks. But there is oftentimes more, certainly, to the story than just that. With both these teams, there is more to that particular story. This is the question I think, Josh, you bring up that I brought up before, and we'll save this as we get into next year. What will Kelsey Mitchell look like with Caitlin Clark next year? I don't see them pairing together. And the reason why Josh brings that up is a good one, because both would be, I will say this, I think Mitchell can move off the ball and move without the ball better, but they both can be, certainly Caitlin Clark's going to be ball dominant. So how is that going to go, Josh? That is a question that I've asked before, and certainly we will ask once the season is about ready to get underway. Yeah, because I think that you can look at it all the way around, but that particular pairing would be worthy of watching with the ball domination that goes on there. And no doubt. JMV. Do you think the Pacers should do something special for Nancy? I'm assuming they will for Nancy Leonard, right? There's any doubt about that. Just a great overall effort for the Fever and the Pacers. I cannot wait till the Pacers season starts. I know a lot of you are still back burner wise because there's no Halliburton and Miles. Everybody just wants to argue about Miles and what Miles says and what Miles does. Here's what matters about Miles right now. At some point, you're going to have to play and show and back up what you say, like all this new level of embracing that you're getting from Milwaukee and the fan base that you, I guess, felt you didn't get here. You're going to have to back that up on the floor. And that is a lot to ask of a guy that consistently needs other guys. Now, Giannis being there, don't get me wrong, he's got another guy, but Miles needed a point. Uh-oh. We just saw a Padres home run. Was that Machado right there that just went yard? It was indeed. Manny Machado just goes 404 out of the park as the Padres try to stay alive. It was a solo shot by Machado. 2-0. Not check that. I'm sorry. That was a 2-run shot right there. So 3-0 right now. Padres over the Cubs. Top half of the fifth inning. All right, 239-1070 is that number. Our good friend Mike in Brooklyn is going to step in here on this Wednesday. Hello, Mike. How are you?
JMV, yeah, listen, those guys covering the team today really earned their money because they didn't let Steichen off the hook. They asked the questions that I was wanting answers to. And
do you want to see Mitchell benched?
I want to see him inactive this week.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, without a doubt. You can't trust him to put him on the field, this week. We'll be fine with Doolin if PS can't go. Hopefully PS can go. So. But yeah, just I am for sending a message. That's the way you send a message to these guys. Playing time, and hopefully he gets it. That's the only thing that we can hope for, is that he gets it.
Yeah,
and that's part of being
that hope has been going on certainly for the most part the past year and a half around here. So
unfortunately,
yeah,
yeah. So, the things that we've talked about since how long, we're into week 4, and I was thinking about this. We're 2 major gaffes that are just damning indictments on your coaching staff and the whole organization. Last week, 10 men on the field in that situation, and the mismanagement of, the Broncos game. And I'm thinking that these are just the tip of the iceberg, because I'll say this. I have noticed when they cut away to Lou Anarumo, going back to the opener, there seems a level of dysfunction there. There's like a lot of chaos going on where he's trying to communicate. Like he's not happy with his assistants or whatever. Something's going on there. And also, if you remember the Titans game, because I pay attention to this stuff, the famous first punt of the season, when they were trying to figure out, is this a penalty?
Yeah.
And Steichen is out there on the field arguing, and you could see the moment, the clock is running, okay, it's not a penalty. And you could see the moment where somebody goes, hey, what are we doing? And he's like, he's like snaps out of it. He's like, yeah, punt, get the punting team out there. So, it's just kind of like the same thing over and over again that just reinforces, we have a head coach whose main priority is being the offensive coordinator. That's what it just keeps on. The theme just keeps on repeating. And I also noticed that last week, the Houston Texans, D'Amico Ryans gave up the defensive play calling, for his team last year. And we've been talking about that play calling thing. It has to be a contributing factor to the fact that Steichen, he just looks like a guy whose main focus is, I want to be the offensive coordinator, and I'm just going to go through the motions on being a head coach.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my take on it.
Well, and I think, Mike, what you bring up is something that many like you and I will discuss until proven otherwise, right? And there's still an opportunity to prove it, but, what do you do in proving it? And you got to think about this. You already sidestepped one proverbial landmine in week number 2. Think about how haywire that would have gone, and those are the reasons why you bring this up. Those are the reasons why we talk this up, and I guess what will it take? 2 things here, because you brought up A.D. Mitchell, and in closing, what will it take for Steichen to prove to you that he's capable of handling everything, especially the offense and, just being an NFL head coach on the sideline? And what will it take A.D. Mitchell to prove that he deserves reps and opportunities out there once again?
Yeah, well, the A.D. Mitchell thing is, like I said, a lot of it is like, even what Stackett said, a lot of it is behind the scenes stuff. Like, you can get a gauge on a guy where his mental framework is.
So I think it's something he has to prove on the field, though. I think that's something where you have to absolutely see it to believe it, and that happens on the field.
Absolutely. And it's like one of these things where, the talent is never in question for these guys. The talent in question is not in question. It's the other stuff that can we trust you to put you out on the field without doing something stupid that's going to cost us a game. Same thing with Anthony Richardson last year. You could say he's young. He just doesn't get it yet, but you got to get it. And as far as Steichen goes, I'll ask you this question in terms that you will get this analogy. Who's our Gene Kranz, and who's? I would say that Ballard is the Gene Kranz, and Steichen is the Jim Lovell. There's got to be, to be a competent organization, it's kind of like getting Apollo 13 back in. If you want to go where we want to go, you got to have somebody who's level-headed, who can make these critical decisions that need to be made on both ends. Somebody who has the big picture in mind, and then somebody who's tactically still has to figure it out. And I think both of them are capable of it, but they just haven't shown it yet.
Yeah,
on a consistent basis, definitely.
There's no doubt that people are going to take 3-1 on the season, especially with the mediocrity or less we have seen in recent history here. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that can be, Mike, proven until we actually see it on the field, and it's proven by results. And that's where it's going to stand, I think, until further notice. My brother, I appreciate you more than you know. Check in later on this week.
Well, thank you, brother. Take care.
Mike in Brooklyn, New York. 239-1070 for anybody else on the other side. JMV, I'm butthurt because you don't read my emails. Don't be butthurt. Manny Machado, 2-run shot. Padres, 3-0. Bottom of 5. The Cubs bat with nobody out. Looking to clinch, but down 3 runs right now. Guardians win. They force a game 3. AL wild card a little bit earlier today. 6-1 was the final. Guardians over the Tigers. Get the Red Sox up a game. They're best of 3 in New York. And the Reds on the road in L.A. Chavez Ravine with the Dodgers an opportunity to close out against the Reds later on tonight at 9 o'clock. The stream, the app, HD Radio, AAA, Membership Lounge, via YouTube Live. What would you do to A.D. Mitchell this weekend? And this is a great question regarding Miles because I'm assuming they will, but now you kind of wonder if they won't, because of the potential fan reaction. That question coming up too. Lance Mallister, top of the hour. Sit tight. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Because I'm really butthurt when you read your email.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Shout out to Babyface. Crank this up. Whip appeal. JMV, can you talk about whip in baseball? Whip. That was Family Guy, right? Cool whip. How did they pronounce it? Whip. Whip.
It's a cool whip.
Cool whip. Whip in baseball. The origination. That is a baseball stat, by the way. Whip, one of the most insightful metrics of evaluating a pitcher's performance, friends. Especially those who ask. The concept of whip was first introduced by some dude named Daniel Okrent. He's a renowned baseball statistician. A massive role in the development of various sabermetric measurements. Oh, we have him to thank. Great. Thanks, nerd. Sabermetric measurements including whip, which has now become a standard stat in baseball analysis, and the reason why this was asked for me. The acronym WHIP stands for walks and hits per innings pitched. How's it calculated? Relatively straightforward using the following formula. Walks plus hits / innings pitched. That is WHIP in baseball. Thank you for asking. Somebody says that your Stewie voice is on point right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do it again.
Cool whip. That wasn't
good.
a good one, I don't think.
That is good right there. That is well done.
Guess I have a future as a voice actor.
Jim McCann in Southern California chimes in. JMV, in my many years, I cannot recall an NBA, college, or WNBA team losing as many starters as the Fever did and making that kind of incredible playoff run. Jim McCann. I don't want to take anything away from it. I think it's also the composition of the league and the sport right now, because it's flooring to me that you go out and find somebody that became so incredibly important to winning for this team in the postseason as, for example, Odyssey Sims did. And you're just not going to find that availability, somebody that is that good anywhere else. But you also have to maintain a fit in what you're doing team-wise. So that also counts. But I think it's also the makeup and the composition of the league itself, just having players out there that, can't help at that level that are readily available during the season. That's nuts. And the Fever found a couple of those. JMV, which is more painful, a kidney stone or a Pike Sausage Fest party in 1991? Let me tell you this. I'll pass a kidney stone with relative ease again if you ask me to. I mean, right out, because you know where you don't, fellas, you don't like where it exits. It's not supposed to be that way. But the Pike Sausage Fest party in 1991 was brutal. Even as painful as it was at the half of the Shaq and Mac game when I was a sophomore, just right out. Out.
I hated the sound effect you just gave that.
Let me just say this, too. A large burr-like stone in, let's just say, a very small hole.
Paint us a visual picture,
There's
John.
Nothing good about that. And then the coach telling me I was out of shape, and I said, yeah, I know I'm out of shape, but something just came out of this. And it's not supposed to. My pipe was clogged. Quick one. We'll come back. Thank you, Paul, for that. The visual provided by me. 5 o'clock hour. We got bullseye passes for you. Kansas tickets coming up for that show with Jefferson Starship at Everwise Amphitheater and Lance Mallister on the other side. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Lemonheads, my dad's boat. You won't go down 'cause my
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Cubs trying to get out of this. They trail 3-0 top of the sixth inning to the Padres. Manny Machado, a 2-run shot right there. Jackson Merrill had an RBI. And the Padres trying to stay alive. Padres have 2 runners on, first and second, and 2 out. Looks like the Cubs got out of it right there. They did. 3-0 as they go to the bottom of the sixth inning. Batting, Guardians a winner. They force a decisive Game 3 coming up tomorrow. AL wild card. Yankees and the Red Sox, with the Red Sox up a game in their best of 3 at 6 o'clock tonight. And at 9 this evening, you guessed it, Reds and Chavez Ravine versus the Dodgers. They're down a game trying to stay alive in game number 2 coming up later on tonight. To discuss that and more, he's our good friend. He's the pride of Carmel and Butler University, Lance Mallister from the Big One 700 WLW in Cincinnati. Lance, I'm curious, what was worse to watch, last night in Chavez Ravine or Monday night in Denver?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have certainly been on national display the previous 2 nights. Holy cow. I think there was a sense of pending doom based on the Bengals' performance the week before in giving up 48 and losing. I think there was at least some optimism that with Hunter Green on the mound, they'd be able to get something done last night. Had we had this conversation yesterday at this time, and you said, would you take 5 runs and like the Reds' chances? I would have said, with Hunter Green on the mound, 5 runs, this offense scoring 5 runs, I would take it and run with it, and I'll be damned if they didn't give up 10 runs on 15 hits last night.
It looked like the Dodgers, offensively, they were just toying with the Reds.
Well, the first swing, the Shohei Ohtani swing in the first inning, Hunter threw a fastball, 4-seamer at 100. Shohei hit it out at 117.7 miles an hour. Yeah. And by the third inning, they were hitting the ball so hard, and part of it, I guess, is the ESPN mics. They're amplifying things at the plate. But I was jumping in my chair. The sound off the bat was so like cracking of giant redwood trees in the forest. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Ohtani, Betts, Hernandez, Muncy, Freeman, 100 or not, you're not going to sneak too many fastballs past those dudes. You're just not.
Yeah, and I obviously hesitate to use the term machine in this city because we have the Big Red machine.
Yes.
That Dodger lineup, that's an absolute machine. I mean, they just mow and plow through teams, and they did it to Hunter Green last night. That's the disappointing thing, to get what they did, and it took them to get into the bullpen to cobble together some runs last night from the Reds standpoint. I get that, but I don't think anybody thought Hunter would look that, I don't know if unnerved is fair or discombobulated, but he just from jump did not have it last night.
I was bummed too because it's the first time I'd seen Matt McClain get 2 hits in the game, I think, since May or whatever it was. So, yeah. I mean, you waste the Matt McClain game last night in the process.
No question, because he's in the crosshairs with the fan base wondering why Tito plays him every game, and a lot of it is because of his defense. And then, lo and behold, he gives you 2 hits last night, and you don't win the game. So go figure.
All right, so you look back to – is there any redeeming aspect of last night that you hope plays a role in this team trying to stay alive against all odds? Shout out to Phil Collins later on tonight in Game 2.
Yes, the fact that they got into the bullpen, they did score 5 runs. You forced 3 relievers to be used in the 8th inning. All 3 of those threw at least, I think, 18 pitches. So you got into like the underbelly of the Dodgers is their bullpen. If you can get into the bullpen, so they built a little bit of confidence offensively. They worked 3 different relievers, and I think they can put their head on the pillow last night thinking, all right, at least if we can get through the rotation into the bullpen, we've got something built here, but you got to find a way to make it carry over tonight. You got to find a way to get into the bullpen again tonight.
He is Lance Mallister with us. Did you like the way that in this short series, this wild card situation, Francona put together the starting pitching for it too? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it'll be interesting tonight because the hot button topic has been how they're handling tonight with Zach Littell. They could, in theory, go with Nick Lodolo. It's his day to start, but Nick pitched out of the bullpen for the first time in his life on Sunday. They had to. They were up against it. And I think it's going to be a quick hook for Littell tonight. If there's any signs of trouble. I mean, if there's first inning trouble, I think they'll go to, if not Lodolo, somebody else, and it'll start a cavalcade of relievers out of the bullpen tonight. And it's the classic throw everybody but the kitchen stink at them tonight. But they got to get something out of Littell at least.
What do you think that they should do pitching-wise? If you were making the call, what would that be?
I understand Littell over Lodolo because you can flip. You've got the benefit of being able to yank Littell at the first sign of trouble and go from a righty to Lodolo, who's the lefty, and kind of play some games with the Dodger lineup. But there will be an awful lot of second guessing if it doesn't work tonight and they go out in two with a snap of a finger.
Did you have more of a disappointment from an individual or an aspect of this team more so than anything else last night, or did you just kind of chalk this up to a landslide, offensively speaking, from the Dodgers?
Yeah, you knew they weren't going to be able to outslug. You're never going to be able to outslug them in this series. And Tito's kind of gone back and forth. There's two different types of lineups. You can go with how your hands line up, guys who are defenders like McClain and keep Brian Hayes at third, or you can go with your offensive lineup, and that's more of a Sal Stewart, Will Benson, guys like that. And I think Tito is looking at run prevention for his lineup with the thought Hunter Green's are one of our aces, and let's get the gloves in there and let's play some defense and limit, help him limit runs, and we'll scratch this thing out. And then all bets were off once the Dodgers erupted by the third inning, and it really didn't matter last night.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, really, it's almost like when Ohtani did what he did right off the bat. Everybody just kind of sunk even from that. It almost felt like the game was over. How many pitches in was it? Like 4 or 5, something like that?
It was 4. And by the third, when the next homers came, I even had I think I tweeted this. It almost felt unfair. I mean, not to you feel sorry for yourself, but it almost felt unfair because everything came crashing in. How good the Dodgers are, how suspect the Reds are, how big, powerful, and expensive the lineup is, and how puny the Reds' payroll is. All that comes crashing forward at that point. And you said, man, is this going to be like on national TV? Is it going to be like 15-0? Is it going to be Little League? Is there a run rule? Can we just throw in the towel on this thing?
I mentioned a redeeming quality of taking away from that loss last night. Let's just say, for example, they bow out in 2 straight in Chavez Ravine. How do you view this season as a whole? The first for Francona and what was a lot of hope. You get to the postseason, but how do you view it as a whole?
They made progress from that standpoint. They got into the postseason, but I've said all along, and I know they got in, but this team's been short all season long. They've talked for 2 off seasons, and they needed a bat. They never got a bat. They actually need 2 bats. To their credit, they scraped and clawed, and somehow they were counted out. They call them here. They're being called the cockroaches because you can't kill them, and it's really caught on. There's T-shirts around the city. The Cincinnati Reds, the cockroaches. You can't kill them.
Who came up with that, and why is anybody wearing the cockroaches on their T-shirt? Who the hell did that?
Well, there's so many questions. I have so few answers. But they have been counted out so many times, and to their credit, they found a way to get in. But, man, I think everybody in their back of their mind knew it just wasn't a good enough roster, and it's going to have to be better for next season because the standard has to be raised. It just can't be get in. I mean, for goodness sakes, this team hasn't won a playoff series since 1995, and the last I've checked, it's 2025. That's not acceptable.
So will they do what is necessary? Are you at all confident in that, or will they kind of piece this thing together again?
No, I would not hold my breath. I'll believe it when I see it. Everybody here wants Kyle Schwarber because he's from Middletown, Ohio. The Reds aren't spending that kind of money. Until the Reds make that type of financial commitment, I refuse to believe it. And I think he goes back to Philadelphia, and then the question will be, well, then who? And I don't know. You got to show me. It's the Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
Yeah.
This organization hasn't shown anybody the money to this point.
It's no doubt about that. Lance Mallister, 700 WLW in Cincinnati. You get the Reds and the Dodgers coming up later on tonight. Who's been the biggest surprise for you on this Reds team this season? Who came out of nowhere and you went, oh, okay, this guy's good and he can continue to grow into that role and then add to it moving forward?
Well, the guy I've gone back and forth on, and I thought for the longest time he was a fourth outfielder. I liked him. I thought he was a fourth outfielder. TJ Friedel this year kind of embraced who he should be, and Tito kind of challenged him in spring training and said, look, just get on 2 times a game for me. Don't worry about anything else. Just get on 2 times a game, and we'll be good. And he did that. Only Fernando Tatis Jr. and Shohei got on base more this year than TJ Friedel. He set career highs in getting on base and walks and scoring runs, and he's a grinder. And I've come around to being a much greater appreciator of his skill set than I was, and it was fun to see.
I was just hoping the influence of New Balance would make Ohtani worse in this postseason. Unfortunately, that's not been the case.
No, it has not. That second one, he hit 454 last night. Holy cow. By the way, not to interrupt you, but if you can give me 30 seconds on the Indiana Fever just after last night, my wife and I have become huge fans. Our family traveled to a game this year in Indy. Last night, the scene in our household, my wife is watching the Fever in the living room. I'm watching the Reds in my office. And this was the sequence of events. She yelled to me, "The Fever are winning!" And I yelled back, "The Reds are losing!" And then the next update was, "The Fever are in overtime." And my update was, "The Reds are still losing." That was kind of the back and forth of the entire night. And it just a hell of a run by that basketball team, which was really, despite all the injuries, it was a really fun grind to watch that team get to where they got to last night.
I don't think you're going to find any other team out there that had so many that were not a part of this team at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Or in that type of situation in the postseason in a decisive Game 5 and taking that to overtime. It is amazing. And Lance, I will view it this way too. I think you got from the Pacers and the Fever, and you know this because you're from the state of Indiana, how much we value basketball and how much we know basketball. Without a championship, you got exactly the type of team and effort that you always want to see. What is talked about, what is written on walls, what is coached up. You got exactly what you want out of your basketball teams professionally without a championship, but that's what you want to see and how you want to see those teams play.
I couldn't say it any better. That is the DNA of those two teams is the DNA of the state of Indiana and Hoosier basketball, no question.
Now, did you become a Fever fan because of Caitlin Clark or just?
Yes,
okay.
I'll admit that hand in the air. My wife more so at the start than I was, and I've kind of joined in. But I'll tell you what they did without her, it drew us in even more to what kind of run they went on, and it was sad to see it end last night, but it was a hell of a run.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was, but push it to the limit. Lance Mallister is with us. I did bring up the Bengals, and on Monday night, it does not look like there's any chance of survival until Burrow comes back, is there?
How sad an indictment that a team that loses Joe Burrow, and he's great, but a team that loses Joe Burrow is reduced to laughingstock status as one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. Well, I don't know if they'll stay that way. They'll probably scrape out a game or two. But what does it say about your franchise, your organization, if you lose your starting quarterback and you look the way they've the last 2 weeks? I mean, they gave up 48 and lost by the largest margin of the history of the franchise 2 weeks ago. And all Zach Taylor said was, we got to get better. Adversity, we're good at handling adversity. This is the time for leaders to step up. And they turn around and do that on Monday night where they committed more penalties than they had first downs. And Zach steps in front of the podium today and says, it starts with me. It's about accountability and blah, blah, blah. Well, what was it last week when you were coming off a poor performance?
Isn't not across the board in the NFL, most teams put in that situation losing their elite level star caliber quarterback. I'm not suggesting they're going to look like Monday night did for the Bengals in Denver, but most of the time the outcome is going to be the same around the NFL, is it not?
Yeah, but understand, they have Jamar Chase, who's arguably the best wide receiver in the game. They gave T. Higgins $1 gazillion to be the number 2. They have the NFL sack leader from a year ago in Trey Hendrickson. I mean, my goodness, I get that Joe is the man, but Can you do something else as an organization to build some depth? And can you do something else to X and O with your football team and not look like, Zach Taylor looked like a deer in headlights. The thing that drives me crazy about Zach, it looks like he's reached the point where as an NFL head coach without his quarterback, he has absolutely no answers whatsoever. He looks around like, I don't know what to do now, coupled with a little bit of, oh my goodness, people are going to realize that I'm now exposed for what I am as a head coach without Joe Burrow. And it drives me and the fan base crazy.
Well, this type of season, because obviously this is going to be more times than not the outcome without Burrow. It doesn't look survivable until he gets back. Certainly, will that cost Taylor his job?
I would assume that he's got the built-in excuse of he's lost the quarterback. This organization's very good with coming up with excuses or scapegoating guys. Let's remember, it was a year ago, the problems with the defense are Lou Anarumo. Got to fire Lou Anarumo and everything's going to be fine. Well, how fine did they look the last 2 weeks with the new defensive coordinator? It's a joke.
So, speaking
of... all fired up. See, I was expecting to, ease into this and talk about the Reds and the feel good at tonight, and now we took a right turn, and I'm heading off a cliff.
Keep that balance right here with Lou Anarumo, because inquiring minds want to know, is it prerequisite to have played or been a friend or an acquaintance of Lou Anarumo to play on a defense? Was it that way in Cincinnati?
He is. He's very aware of people who he can trust and believe in. Let's put it that way.
Well, Xavier Howard has not worked at all, and you just kind of wonder, off the couch and then thrust into the situation. Yep. That's not people like we've seen differences. The blitzing and the stuff that we hadn't seen through Eberflus and through Bradley is good. But the constant lean on those that have been your acquaintance before, you just kind of wonder if that's going to work, especially in Howard's case here.
No question. And in the early stages when he was here, it did. In the later stages, it didn't, because that lean was, to those types of players and away from young guys instead of letting them develop and trying to throw them in the deep end. And that was ultimately one of the facets of them moving on. They had a lot of young guys who hadn't developed as much as they thought they would. Yet in the end, we've talked about this. They let DJ Reader go from the middle of their defensive line. They let Jesse Bates go, the Pro Bowler, from the back of that defense. And they just expected him to magically make it better, and he couldn't do it.
Do you believe in him here?
I do. I do. I believe in Lou Anarumo, yes.
It's Lance Mallister on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So when is the point in time when Chase snaps in Cincinnati? When's the snap coming?
I think that's going to be very interesting, because the storyline going into Monday night, T. Higgins had a total of 7 catches in 3 games and only had 14 targets in 3 games. And so now you've got those two who are upper echelon, and Jamar coming off a triple crown. You start extrapolating numbers, like multiplying out, okay, man, he's got this many catches through 4 games with Jake. What's a season going to look like for him, catches and yards? And we saw a little bit of him on the sidelines on Monday night, and it's not, like demonstrative like Keyshawn Johnson, like give me the damn ball. But I think it's fair and understandable for those guys to the biggest complaint of this offense has always been, even with Joe, Zach's inability to scheme up things to get the ball into the hands of his best playmakers. Too often it's, well, the defense took away this and that. No. When you have the weapons you have, you dictate and you find a way to scheme to get the ball into the hands of your best players. And Zach's answer last week was, well, things will even out. T only had 2 catches the week before, but things eventually even out. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard a head coach say with those type of weapons, that you don't wait for them to even out. You scheme into more opportunities for your guys, and he can't do it. He just can't.
Is it a feel-good week that you have, Dan, it's 4-down territory if I have the football inside my own 5, Campbell in town with the Lions and the Bengals, 4:25, I think it is, coming up on Sunday afternoon. Is that a feel-good storyline in Cincy?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, well, hey, I want you to leave us with this, though. Us Reds fans here in Central Indiana, we got anything to grasp, any shred of decency in the form of hope for us in Game 2 tonight?
Yes, because every time we've counted them out, they have found a way to scratch and survive. Now, there's some point, unless they win the World Series, there's going to be an end to that. But the hope is tonight, they've been playing playoff baseball and backs against the wall for the last month. So they're used to this. Can they get into the bullpen tonight and do some damage? And does Tito lean a little bit more offense than defense with his lineup? And they're going to have to hit some home runs. They don't hit a lot of home runs, and they got out-homered 5-0 last night. If they do that, they'll have a chance.
I need a little something. I want to see them get one out of this and make it interesting, because it was so massively uninteresting.
Yeah,
it was. I almost felt at times. I know it's not, Lance. Watching it last night, that would have been better off if they were sitting on their ass someplace else and not playing. And I know that's not the case, but that's kind of how it felt a couple of times last night.
There were moments I wanted to turn it off and go to bed, and then I realized I had to be on to 1 a.m.
Yeah, no doubt. You had to put up with the post game last night. Yeah, good luck with that. All right. Hey, my best to everybody over there. We'll do it again soon. We'll see what happens tonight, Lance. Thank you.
Look forward to it. You got it. Thanks.
Lance McAllister, 700 WLW in Cincinnati. The Reds have any shred of hope tonight? Can you give me anything? I got that, and then this question. We don't necessarily have to have the entirety of this question, but Truex does bring up something interesting. Better chance of a welcome back montage video, Luck or Miles? Well, I don't think you're ever going to have one with Luck, and I think we always talk about the Ring of Honor with Andrew Luck, which most certainly is not going to happen anytime soon, and certainly will not happen until this team shows the highest level of success. It's just not. And you can argue with me all day, it will not happen. But how about the welcome back montage for Miles? I think Miles has squashed it. And if I'm Miles, I don't want it now, knowing the fan reaction because of what you have said here. And if I'm the Pacers, I don't know how you don't do it. And maybe you do because he does get booed, but there is zero doubt his ass is going to get booed on November the 3rd. So here's my assumption. I would guess, unless Miles absolutely doesn't want it, that the Pacers will extend that professional gratitude. But he's positioned himself to where he is going to get roundly booed. I don't think there's any way around it. November the 3rd on a Monday night. It's coming up quickly, about a month away. Speaking of that, Bullseye, you want to do number 9 at 239-1070 right now? Bullseye passes. All you can eat, all you can drink with bullseyeeventgroup.com. Kyle Kinnett has come up with the absolute best pregame party anywhere. Bullseyeeventgroup.com. All you can eat, all you can drink. DJ Skids, our good friend Laura Steele is the MC too. Opens up at 10 a.m. on Sunday before the Raider game. Number 9 at 239-1070. You can go on us. By the way, if you don't win these, make sure you log on and get your passes now. bullseyeeventgroup.com. Your calls and more coming up until the top of the hour. We've got a lot on the plate to get to. Don't go anywhere on this Wednesday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's cool. Consider me Miles Davis.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Kansas and Jefferson Starship, number 9. You can go on us, Everwise Amphitheater, month of October. We got 2 for you right here to go. Number 9 at 239-1070. Kansas and Jefferson Starship. Yeah, I did see this a little bit earlier, which was I was going to bring up regarding the whole Miles montage. So in the last 30 minutes, he sent out an X message saying, and here was the quote that everybody got all in an uproar. And again, it's not so much me about this as it is, again, what I felt was a shot at teammates going out the door, the whole level of competition. I hate that aspect of it because I have a great deal of admiration. And at some point, either you need to be clear or you should not say anything about it. So this is going to be like the whole Victor Oladipo experience here. So if you remember the quote back on the 29th, I'm in a city now that wants to celebrate me. There's a great quote that says, go where you're celebrated. I feel like that's here. Well, let me give some help. When you say city, then obviously the fan base here is going to feel that you're comparing Milwaukee to the city of Indy and the fan base here. Now, if you were to say, I'm with an organization that now wants to celebrate me, that could be different. And as I brought up, my whole thought on it is the organization tried to trade him. They bring in DeAndre Ayton, and you probably are still bent out of shape. What did I bring up? The grudge. And I always felt that Miles was upset not so much about those inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse on a nightly basis, but upset with going to social media and reading what people have to say. And as you remember, I've always mentioned that that's the last place he ever needed to go. So that was the quote from Miles a couple of days ago. And then within the last 30 minutes, Miles sent out on X, this quote has nothing in capitals to do with Indy fans and everything to do with my free agency experience. Well, the experience that we know about it right now is that you took the deal that was cobbled together with cutting loose Damian Lillard and the finding of money in Milwaukee without giving the Pacers an opportunity to respond to it. And listen, without question, there would be animosity, I'm sure, there organizationally with always being in the old trade rumor mill and the whole DeAndre Ayton thing. And that's just, as a grudge card-carrying member, I understand stuff like that. But when you say, I'm in a city now that wants to celebrate me, you should have said organization then, or just nothing at all. Because as was brought up to me earlier, did you see that Miles clarified, none of that's going to matter. 10 years here, his time, and then how it ultimately ended in the NBA Finals through 7 games in this past season, yes, it deserves without question a video montage, but I don't know if anybody would want to do that right now because it's going to get booed. You just have to be a little bit more careful about how you identify, and that's just how it's going to be taken. All you have to do is look at all the responses. I'm sure that the organization will do what is right and will compliment him on his time here on November the 3rd. But the reaction, I don't know what at this point in time you're going to be able to do about that. Because to me, that's a foregone conclusion, and I don't necessarily think this particular clarifying quote is going to help it very much. Just me. That's about a month away. November the 3rd is that first meeting here. But that, again, was within the last 30-plus minutes from Miles. This quote has nothing to do with Indy fans and everything to do with my free agency experience. So clearly he has a great deal of hatred for Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan, I guess, at this point. Probably most certainly Kevin Pritchard. And again, that was part of the equation. Between that and then the whole social media, I never thought it was those within the field house. But I don't know how you do that. And in this case, you probably don't. And on November the 3rd, the Pacers, because that's what a respectful, responsible organization does, you come up with a video thanking. But I'm assuming the response is not going to change, even with that clarification earlier today. Just a thought. JMV, I have faith in the Reds, and I'm sticking with them, but as a teacher, these late-night West Coast games are killing me. It's not like the 90s when you could just put a movie in the VCR the next day and catch up. Well, I mean, you could do it on... Hell, it's even easy to do now if you want to get up and watch that bad boy. Why not? JMV, I stopped by your favorite pickleball place yesterday, Pickle on Penn. Saw Steve and the lovely bartenders, beers and pickleball. Who would have thought? Bob Chambers, shout out to Bob. Thank you, Bob, for that. Yeah, Steve and Kelly Bodner, this time a week ago, we were at Pickle on Penn having an absolute outstanding time. Most certainly we will be back. IU fan in Texas writes this. Did you see Miles' clarification? Ain't the fans he was tweeting about. Stay kind. The problem is, I just don't think you're going to get any of that back at this point. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Pacer fans inside that building. Again, I am just taking the view of social media right now. Maybe inside the field house on November the 3rd with those fans, it will be different. But it makes you wonder if for nothing else, does it? And if it doesn't, it certainly should. Hey, tomorrow's show is going to be live at Parks Place Pub. It is Sleater and Whitlow. The Mats are going to be making picks along with Brent Holverson and I, Week 5. You do have teams in their first bye week experience this week. The Falcons, Bears, Packers, and Steelers. And the Packers coming off that tie on Sunday night in Dallas. The Steelers feeling really good about the start of their season with Aaron Rodgers. The Bears blocking a field goal attempt and winning on the road in Vegas. And the Falcons with the bounce back over the weekend. But your first bye weeks hit coming up this week. 49ers and Rams. That is your Thursday night experience. And Parks Place Pub and Fishers for us. That is coming up tomorrow. Cannot wait. We got the samples per usual. Heaven Hill Distillery. Got that going for you and then some. Yeah, no, the Andrew, part of the Truex question there was regarding Andrew Luck. Come on now. Ring of Honor experience. You know how far down the road you're going to have to be? Yeah, this whole 3-1 month of September thing is not going to help that just yet. That is for sure. JMV, I would show a great deal of class on the Pacers' part to celebrate Miles when he returns, despite what he has said and how he has left. And make no mistake, Jeff, or I should say Joe and Mooresville, that's what they're going to do. They'll do that. But And the response with that group in the field house may be different than the type of response you get in social media. I understand that. I just don't know if there's a way you can double back on the feeling that a lot of fans have with that clarification of 30-plus minutes ago. But we'll see. Maybe in the next month or so, you can make up for it with some kind words. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Harrah's Hoosier Park race of the day, 50 in betting, 50 in dining. You have a horse. We'll find out who's going to win. They're racing now through November. Harrah's Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. Are you ready? We'll see who wins the Harrah's Hoosier Park race of the day.
I want you to be nice.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, yeah, it is a hairband weekend on B105.7. 50 in betting, 50 in dining, Harrah's Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. Kevin Bowen, the winner. Dan Goodfeelin was the winning horse, paid out $46.60 on a $2 bet. The $2 exacta, $256. The 50-cent trifecta went for $137.65. We do it Tuesday through Friday right here, where you can win 50 in betting and 50 in dining from Harrah's Hoosier Park Racing and Casino in Anderson. It is the Harrah's Hoosier Park Race of the Day. Thank you, Tony Renz, for that, too. It is always a great time doing this. I know people really love participating. The Harrah's Hoosier Park Race of the Day. Do it again coming up tomorrow in the 5 o'clock hour for you. Joseph Fenton Faust chimes in. If he thinks Pacer fans were tough on him here, just wait until he's not able to put up the production that Milwaukee expects with the contract that he received. And the way that they went about trying to weave something together for him and then targeting him, that is going to be tough. I know it's easier said than done, and I'm sure that there are a lot of things behind the scenes. And I know you would have had to spend a season without it. But his relationship, the progress he made in production coincided with Tyrese Halliburton. And when you look on Milwaukee's roster, is there anybody like Kevin Porter Jr. that equates to that? There is not. There's more like the Malcolm Brogdon effect, which is certainly problematic because you saw when Malcolm Brogdon was here, dribble, 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 high ball screen, no pass, staked out in the corner, playing with two bigs. Yeah. It was only when Tyrese Halliburton got here that, we saw that production that became more consistent. And hopefully he can overcome that. I mean, maybe just being around Giannis in general is going to be helpful in that capacity, but that is a tough one right there. Joseph, I would agree. JMV, Miles, you've gone through media training. You know to watch what you say and how you say it. It's too late to try to take it back. You said what you said. I don't think I mind him clarifying that. But if it's the organization, just stay the organization. I think people would understand. I didn't like what he had to say outgoing about the level of competition and what he expects in Milwaukee compared to what is left over here. I don't like that. I thought that was a backhanded swipe at his teammates here. To me, if you just say, you know what, my time there, my 10 years, it was great. This past season was great. I leave behind great dude. And maybe he just doesn't feel that way. But you just show such a high level of gratitude because this past year was meaningful at the highest level to all Pacer fans. And really, that's all you have to do. But having to go back and clarify and, well, this is what I really meant, that's tough to do. Little question out of that. Hey, Win Schuler's spreadability is not tough. You can find it at all the local Meijer locations in central Indiana. From original cheddar to sharp cheddar, bacon and cheddar, and jalapeno pepper. Do you have your Win Schuler's tubs yet? It is great. Dipping with crackers, with chips, with vegetables. You can put that on burgers. Seriously, Win Schuler's spreadability. Meijer locations, Gordon Foods, wherever you, I guess, find your favorite groceries in your favorite grocer's refrigerator. Make sure it's Win Schuler's back for 2025. Not just the football season, but the fall in general. Win Schuler's. Uh-oh. Corey Kinney says, tomorrow I may have to make an appearance at 3 p.m. I fully expected that. I think, Corey, that's not your home base, right? Parks Place Pub? Fishers? That's a home base for you right there. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be one hell of a time. I love being out. And then on Friday, too, we go to Parks Place tomorrow, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. And then coming up on Friday, it's my first time to do a live show at Binkley's. Binkley's in Broad Ripple. Coming up tomorrow. Or I should say on Friday. Sorry, tomorrow's Parks Place and Fisher's, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. And then coming up on Friday, Bud Light Blue Friday, Raiders, Colts tickets, Binkley's off of College and Broad Ripple. Hell, I just drove by it today, which leads me to this. JMV, did I see you hanging out at Daddy Jack's around noon? You did. My good friend Romy and I were hanging out for a minute. I go to Premier Weight Loss, do the old checkup, find out that I'm weighing 177 and feeling good on the old weight loss journey now, and hung out with friend Jim Romanek for a couple of minutes. I did a show at Daddy Jack's maybe back in 07 or 08. It's been a hell of a long time. But yes, you did see me there. Thank you very much. All right, 239-1070. Is he still on hold there? Let's go ahead and work him in here. Fulton, are you there, buddy?
Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, Fulton. How are you?
I've been busy lately.
Busy lately. That sounds like it's always the case with you, Fulton.
Yes, I'm going to my first IU football game on October 18, coming up pretty soon.
Okay.
So I'm excited for that. And we were wondering if you guys would like to donate for Special Olympics. We need help with the athletes and everything for Special Olympics.
Well, how can people donate, Pods? How can they do that?
We have an event on October 9th, and it's going to be at Texas Roadhouse.
Okay.
In Fishers or Carmel.
Okay.
If anybody wants to come and donate, they're welcome to. It is like 5 to 9 or something.
Okay.
5 to 10.
Well, I tell you what, I got to run here, Fulton. The Texas Roadhouse locations, according to Fulton. He say Carmel and Fishers?
I believe he did, yes.
Yeah. That's our good friend Fulton. Cubs' last opportunity, bottom of the ninth, down 3-0 to the Padres. Reds later on tonight at 9 to try to stay alive. Parks Place Pub and Fishers tomorrow. Cannot wait to see you at 3. Have a great night.